Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated to a medieval Pokémon world. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 201, Sir Aaron. Your Majesty, you have already done very well. Seeing the faint worry on Lucien's face, Elif couldn't help but offer words of comfort. In truth, countless ancient kingdoms had risen and fallen upon this land. Among their rulers, not a single one could claim to have done better than His Majesty. Lucien shook his head gently. I'm only worried that my approach may have been a little too rushed. Perhaps he should have waited a few more years, until the people had gained a deeper understanding of Pokémon, before formally promoting trainer culture to the outside world. But then again, what's done is done. There's no use dwelling on it now. What mattered was moving forward without hesitation. After finishing the day's official affairs, Lucien turned his attention to his panel. Following the recent wave of development, his subjects had once again contributed a massive amount of satisfaction points. And these points could be exchanged for entirely new technologies. With a single thought, the technology tree unfolded before his eyes. A long list of unlockable options appeared. Steamship unlocks the theories and production methods for large, seagoing vessels powered by steam engines, enabling long-distance ocean travel and maritime trade. Cost: 150,000 satisfaction points. Pokémon Nutrition unlocks advanced Pokémon food technologies, including Pokeblocks, Poffins, and specialized dietary formulas designed to meet Pokémon nutritional needs. Cost: 100,000 satisfaction points. Bicycle unlocks the production method for bicycles. Cost: 50,000 satisfaction points. Lucien stared at the list, momentarily stunned. The costs were rising rapidly. But on reflection, it made sense. With the kingdom unified, the population under his rule had grown dramatically. The satisfaction points generated by his people had increased accordingly. If manpower and resources weren't so limited, Lucien felt confident he could push the world into a second industrial revolution within 30 years, bringing electric lights, telephones, and more. One step at a time, he reminded himself. With a shift of his will, Lucien unlocked the three technologies most vital to the kingdom's immediate future. The steamship, driven by steam engines, would allow for the construction of massive vessels capable of crossing the oceans. This wouldn't merely expand trade, it would introduce new populations, connect Unova to distant lands, and allow its goods to be sold across the world. The wealth generated could then be reinvested into Unova's continued development. More importantly, these ships would finally allow Lucien to explore the outside world in earnest, and bring back Pokémon from other regions that could further improve human life. Next was Pokémon Nutrition. This technology would fill the current gaps in Pokémon food production. Properly balanced, specialized diets would allow Pokémon to grow healthier, stronger, and more efficiently, benefiting both trainers and society as a whole. Finally, there was the bicycle. Lucien's expression turned faintly odd. Bicycles were undeniably convenient for short-distance travel, but they were also notoriously fragile. He couldn't help recalling how often Ash had wrecked Misty's bike in the story. Still, flawed as they were, bicycles were better than nothing. Certain groups would undoubtedly find them useful. Once the exchanges were completed, a flood of technical knowledge poured into Lucien's mind. He spent several hours transcribing the information onto paper. The operational theories and construction methods for steamships were sent to the Royal Workshop, along with instructions to establish a shipyard and coordinate development alongside the steam train project. The Pokémon nutrition research, recipes, formulations, and preparation methods were delivered to the Pokémon Association, with orders to distribute and promote the knowledge freely among the populace. Yet even after all this, Lucien found himself deep in thought. Relying solely on his own efforts would never be enough. humanity possessed limitless creativity and inspiration. Rather than doing everything himself, he needed to encourage commoners to invent and innovate as well, to create tools and ideas suited to this new era. A true golden age wasn't built by a single ruler. It was like a masterpiece painting, one that allowed 100 flowers to bloom. Meanwhile, 10 kilometers off the coast of Castelia City, a modest wooden sailing ship cut slowly through the rolling waves. The sky was a clear, brilliant blue. White clouds drifted lazily overhead, and from time to time, the silhouettes of Polyper could be seen gliding across the sky. Painted on the ship's sails was a complex emblem, the royal crest of Rhoda City. There was no doubt about it. This vessel had come from the distant Kanto region. Sailors clad in simple linen robes scanned the horizon. At the far edge of the sea, the faint shadow of a continent had already emerged. One of the sailors entered the cabin and spoke respectfully to the figure within. "Lord Aaron, the kingdom of Eindhoek is just ahead." Hearing the report, the man inside rose to his feet, stepped out of the cabin, and stood upon the deck, gazing toward the distant shoreline. He wore a blue martial uniform, a black cloak draped across his back. A wide-brimmed hat obscured much of his face, lending him an air of mystery, and in his hand he held a scepter topped with a gleaming gemstone. At his side stood a Pokémon that walked upright, wolf-like in appearance. Its posture was dignified, its fur a striking blend of black and blue, majestic and powerful. "Lucario, we will reach our destination soon," the man said calmly. The Lucario beside him nodded quietly. This man was Sir Aaron the hero. A year earlier, news had reached Rhoda that a war sweeping across the land had erupted in the kingdom of Eindhoek. Queen Rin of Rhoda City had long been a pen pal of Eindhoek's former king. The two had exchanged letters frequently and shared a cordial relationship. When word of the war arrived, Queen Rin had grown deeply concerned for the old king's safety. As a result, she dispatched Sir Aaron to Eindhoek to investigate the situation personally. But beyond that, what worried Aaron even more was Queen herself. Conditions in Rhoda City had been growing unstable as well. The ruler of a neighboring nation had provoked them repeatedly. If matters continued this way, war might soon reach Rhoda's borders. "Once I confirm the situation here in Eindhoek," Aaron resolved silently as he stared at the approaching land, "I will return to Oldolan City immediately." The weather that day was excellent. A gentle sea breeze swept across the deck, and before long, the ship entered the port of Castelia City. Aaron had been here twice before. Castelia served as a major transit hub. From here, travelers would transfer inland and continue toward Eindhoek's royal city, the location of the Great Earthsword Castle. Aaron still remembered Castelia City clearly. Back then, it had not seemed much different from other major cities. Rigid class divisions prevailed, with slaves, commoners, nobles, merchants, and lords forming a fixed hierarchy, all coexisting within the same massive urban sprawl. Yet the moment Aaron stepped off the ship this time, he felt something was off. Lucario sensed it as well. Its posture tensed slightly as it scanned the surroundings, aura power subtly spreading outward in a silent sweep. Aaron hesitated, then slowly lifted his gaze. Soon, he understood. The port was busy as ever. Fishermen hauled nets, dock workers moved cargo, and sailors shouted orders. At first glance, nothing seemed different. But compared to the last time he had been here, there were far more Pokémon in the city. On the wooden planks of the pier, several children stood together, tossing breadcrumbs to windgulls circling overhead. Near the ship, several Makhok worked alongside porters, effortlessly carrying heavy crates of cargo. In the shallow waters near the shore, a few strong swimming boys laughed as they played with several stereo. "This is..." Aaron froze, visibly stunned. As someone who traveled with Pokémon, Aaron understood better than most the fear many commoners held toward them. In fact, he himself had not originally been a Pokémon trainer. He had once been a knight and Aura Guardian. He eventually encountered Lucario. Through years of shared training and companionship, the bond between them had deepened into something akin to friendship. Together, Aaron and Lucario had traveled the land, using aura and strength alike to help those in need. Yet despite this, the vast majority of ordinary people still feared Pokémon. But now, Aaron looked around at the scene unfolding before him, astonishment written plainly across his face. There was something fundamentally different about this city. Still, he quickly composed himself. With Lucario at his side, Aaron left the pier and entered Castelia City proper. Walking through the streets alongside a Pokémon did not draw gasps or screams. Passers-by merely glanced at them and then went about their business. Yet Aaron and Lucario both sensed something subtle in those looks. Envy, longing, and even respect. What shocked them even more was that the pier had not been an exception. Throughout Castelia City, Pokémon were everywhere. A simiseer assisted in a bakery, using its flames to help bake bread. Well-dressed noble women strolled the streets while leading herdier. A young boy sprinted past, laughing as a Growlithe chased after him. Several Petalil lay lazily sunbathing in flower beds along the roadside. Aaron even spotted shops dedicated entirely to grooming Pokémon, cutting fur, trimming claws, and bathing them. Inside one such shop, employees gently washed a skitty with warm water while its owner waited nearby. Not far away, a Tepig used the flames on its back to help dry the damp fur of a freshly bathed Lillipup. Aaron stood rooted in place, staring at the scene before him, utterly speechless. Not only Aaron, but Lucario as well stood utterly stunned. In some corner of the world they had never known about, what exactly had happened to this place? However, as an Aura Guardian and an experienced Pokémon partner, Aaron quickly regained his composure. Spotting an elderly man resting on a bench by the roadside, he stepped forward and asked politely, "Excuse me. May I ask what has happened in Castelia City? Why are there suddenly so many monsters here?" Monsters? The old man blinked in surprise at the question, then laughed in realization. "Ah, you must be from out of town, aren't you?" Aaron nodded lightly. "That's right. Lucario and I arrived by sailing ship from elsewhere." "From the sea? That's quite a distance." The old man looked impressed, then waved his hand with a smile. "But let me correct you. They're not called magical beasts or monsters anymore. His Majesty Lucian changed the term. These little fellows are now collectively called Pokémon." "Pokémon," Aaron repeated softly, stunned. "His Majesty Lucian?" "That's right." A look of reverence appeared in the old man's eyes. His Majesty Lucian not only ended the war, but also abolished the slave system. More than that, he taught us how to live alongside Pokémon and use their power to survive on this land. He chuckled as he spoke. "Thinking back now, it really feels like a miracle. Pokémon aren't frightening at all. I don't even know why we feared them so much in the past." Aaron fell silent. Lucian. If his memory served him correctly, that name belonged to the third prince of Eindhoek, the youngest of the royal heirs. What puzzled Aaron was that the civil war had supposedly been between the first and second princes. How, then, had the third prince emerged victorious? He voiced the doubts in his heart, calmly asking the old man for clarification. The old man answered patiently, one point at a time. "The one chosen by the divine dragon Kurum. The one who single-handedly halted the decisive battle on the Castelia plains. The one who unified the kingdom and abolished slavery. The one who taught his people how to coexist with Pokémon. The one who commanded the god of abundance, Landorus, to enrich the soil so that no one would go hungry again. The one who founded a nationwide newspaper network. The one who established Pokémon flying taxis, allowing people to travel swiftly between distant cities." One incredible achievement after another flowed from the old man's mouth. The more Aaron listened, the quieter he became. "Ha, you're probably wondering how an old man like me knows all this, right?" the old man said with a grin. "It's all written in the newspapers." Aaron was speechless. If all of this was true, then the kingdom of Eindhoek was undergoing a complete and unprecedented transformation. As someone who had long traveled with Pokémon, Aaron knew he could not rely solely on hearsay. He wanted to see it with his own eyes. After thanking the old man, Aaron headed straight for the Pokémon flying taxi company in Castelia City. After paying the fare, he and Lucario soon boarded a flying taxi bound for Eindhoven City. Seated inside the small cabin, Man and Pokémon stared out through the transparent window, disbelief written plainly across their faces. They were truly flying through the sky. Eindhoven had already learned to harness Pokémon power to this degree. The speed of the Pokémon flying taxi far exceeded Aaron's expectations. Before he could even fully process it, they had already arrived at their destination. Following familiar routes from memory, Aaron and Lucario made their way to the Great Earth Sword Castle. After presenting credentials identifying them as official messengers, they were granted entry. Under the guard's guidance, Man and Pokémon were soon led into the presence of the former king. "Your Majesty," Aaron said respectfully, performing a standard knight salute. But upon hearing this address, the old king smiled and shook his head. "I am no longer the king," he said calmly. "My son Lucien has done far better than I ever could." "You have already seen it for yourself, haven't you?" he continued warmly. "Under his rule, this kingdom has undergone changes that could shake the earth itself." Chapter 202, Aaron and Lucario. Aaron had indeed seen it. The people of Eindhoven lived and fought alongside Pokémon. They were not tools or weapons, but companions, partners, and in many cases, family. At the very least, Aaron had never witnessed anything like this anywhere else. However, that was not the purpose of his visit. Aaron composed himself and spoke calmly. "I heard that war had broken out in Eindhoven. Queen Rin was deeply concerned for your safety, so she sent me to confirm the situation. Now that I see you are safe, I will return to Rhoda City and report back to her." At the mention of Queen Rin, a trace of nostalgia appeared on the former king's face. "How has Queen Rin been lately?" he asked. "Recently, the nations surrounding Rhoda City have been provoking her repeatedly," Aaron replied. "She is greatly troubled by the situation." "I see." The old king sighed softly. "If you encounter matters that cannot be resolved, you may seek help from my son Lucien. Perhaps he will find a solution." The continent where Rhoda City lay was far less peaceful than Eindhoven. After the War of the Three Dragons, the power displayed by Lucien and the divine dragon Kirim had shaken every ruler on this land. One after another, the smaller kingdoms had chosen submission rather than resistance. Eindhoven had effectively achieved a great unification. Its people shared the same education, language, script, and food. By contrast, Rhoda remained unstable. Numerous kingdoms and empires crowded that continent, constantly clashing and fragmenting the land. Although things had stabilized somewhat in recent years, from Aaron's account, war there would likely erupt again before long. "Thank you for your kindness," Aaron said. Yet in his heart, he knew the truth. The distance between the two lands was vast, separated by an endless ocean. Offering meaningful aid across such a distance was little more than a fantasy. Eindhoven's army would likely be swallowed by the sea long before reaching Rhoda City. The former king looked thoughtful, then spoke again. "There is no need to rush. Before you return, perhaps you should visit the capital of Eindhoven, Lucien City. You may gain something from seeing it for yourself. For example, learning how Pokémon power was integrated into both military and daily life." Aaron hesitated at first, but the former king seemed to anticipate his thoughts and smiled. "It will not take long. By Pokémon flying taxi, Lucien City is only 2 hours away." After a moment of consideration, Aaron bowed. "Thank you. Before returning to Rhoda City, Lucario and I will visit Lucien City together. Please give my regards to Queen Rin," the former king said. "Yes, Your Majesty," Aaron replied respectfully. He and Lucario did not linger. After leaving the Great Earth Sword Castle, they boarded a Pokémon flying taxi once more and set off toward Lucien City. What did it feel like to raise a Pokémon? For Freya, it felt almost magical. Pokémon were much like humans. They ate, slept, and experienced emotions such as joy, anger, sadness, and happiness. The moment Freya officially partnered with Patrat, she could hardly contain herself. She packed her belongings and headed straight into the wild. This forest lay on the route to Striaton City.
However, Freya had no intention of challenging a gym yet.
She had come today to train Patrat and see whether she could catch another partner along the way. The forest was home to many wild Pokémon. Keeping Patrat close, Freya carefully observed them, flipping through her Pokédex and comparing entries.
Nidoran female, Nidoran male, Purloin, Pidgey, Zigzagoon.
Freya's eyes sparkled. Patrat, there are so many Pokémon living here. Her heart swelled with excitement.
Which Pokémon should she try to catch next? Patrat.
Sensing his trainer's enthusiasm, Patrat clenched its small fists and stared determinedly at the surrounding Pokémon. Soon, Freya spotted a lone Pidgey. She and Patrat burst out of the tall grass.
Pidgey, I choose you. Freya pointed forward. Patrat, use tackle.
Patrat immediately charged, throwing its small body toward the Pidgey.
But the Pidgey reacted instantly. It flapped its wings and soared into the air. Anger flashed in its eyes.
With a sharp beat of its wings, a gust of wind surged toward them.
Patrat. The force of the wind sent Patrat tumbling backward. Freya shut her eyes instinctively as the blast hit. What is this? Its power is so strong.
Freya was shocked, but as the wind faded, her gaze toward the Pidgey only grew more intense. Just then, heavy footsteps suddenly thundered through the forest.
Boom! Boom!
The ground itself seemed to shake. Sensing danger, the Pidgey fled without hesitation. A massive figure emerged from the trees.
It was Nidoqueen, the final evolution of Nidoran female.
That was power far beyond what they could handle. Freya's face drained of color. She scooped up Patrat and ran without a second thought.
But the Nidoqueen locked onto them, pursuing relentlessly. Boom!
A hyper beam blasted into the ground behind her. Fear seized Freya's heart, but she managed to reach Accumula Town just in time. The Night Lords stationed there rushed forward, blocking the Nidoqueen at the town's boundary.
Only then did Freya notice others around her.
Several trainers stood nearby, their faces just as pale as her own.
Did you run into dangerous Pokémon too?
Yeah.
I ran into a whole flock of Pidgeotto. I barely made it back. Seriously, the wild is just too terrifying. Some people could not help but feel the urge to give up. They all understood one thing very clearly. If they had not managed to run back to town in time, the outcome would have been unimaginable. They might never have come back at all. Compared to their own lives, becoming a trainer suddenly did not seem so important anymore. What should we do, Patrat? Freya asked softly, her mind replaying the image of the terrifying Nidoqueen.
Hearing stories about dangerous wild Pokémon and experiencing it firsthand were completely different matters. If she had been even a moment slower, the consequences would have been beyond imagining.
Patrat did not know what to do either.
Trainer and Pokémon both fell into silence, uncertainty weighing heavily on them. Compared to Freya and Patrat, Derek in Castelia City had gradually adapted to life with Riolu. He did not rush into the wild. Instead, he remained in the city, applying everything he had learned at the Pokémon school to train his partner. He built speed and endurance through running, strengthened muscles through weight training, and improved technique through repeated practice of moves.
Training was not only for Riolu. Derek trained himself just as hard.
He understood that only with a strong body could a trainer survive long journeys in the wild. After each day of training, Derek used his modest savings to buy food Riolu liked from the market. Riolu was smaller and lighter than him, still resembling a child who had not yet grown.
Because of that, Derek instinctively took on the role of caretaker. Riolu noticed everything.
After several days together, it quietly began to acknowledge its trainer more and more.
Unlike some Pokémon, Riolu was not openly affectionate.
Instead, it responded through action, training even harder and following Derek's methods with absolute seriousness. After a 2-hour flight, Aaron and Lucario finally saw a vast city spread out below them, nestled beside a towering snow-capped mountain.
Though massive in scale, the city's layout was remarkably orderly. Neat rows of buildings lined both sides of a broad river that cut through the city. Beyond the city limits stretched fields and ranches. The farmland was lush and green, and it was immediately obvious how well the crops were growing.
The flying taxi descended slowly. The driver opened the cabin door and smiled.
Lucian City has arrived. Have a pleasant journey. Thank you, Aaron replied. He stepped out with Lucario and walked along the wide avenue, calmly taking in the surroundings. Just like Castelia City, Pokémon could be seen everywhere in Lucian City.
They lived and played alongside humans, their expressions relaxed and content. Even Lucario could not help but feel a trace of envy at the sight. If Ed and Aaron could live in a place like this, how wonderful would that be?
Lucario, do you like it here?
Aaron asked, sensing the subtle shift in aura beside him.
Lucario hesitated briefly before conveying its thoughts through aura. Lord Aaron, I feel that this place is very beautiful.
There is no war, and humans do not harm Pokémon here. Aaron was momentarily stunned, then nodded.
Yes. No war and no oppression. It truly is beautiful.
Still, this place was not their home.
Lucario, Aaron said with a helpless smile, you really do not need to address me so formally. He and Lucario had been together for many years.
Aaron had mastered aura since childhood, and through constant practice, he understood it better than almost anyone.
When he first met Lucario, it had still been a small Riolu.
Drawn by Aaron's aura, Riolu had followed him step by step, eventually evolving into Lucario.
In a sense, Lucario was also his apprentice.
Through years of training together, their relationship had grown close, more like companions than anything else. Yet for some reason, Lucario still believed that the bond between them was one of master and servant.
Lord Aaron. Lucario paused slightly, then nodded firmly. Yes, Lord Aaron. Aaron could only sigh inwardly. Lucario would understand someday.
Let's go, Aaron said gently.
Let us meet His Majesty Lucian. Lucario nodded. Man and Pokémon did not linger on the streets. Instead, they headed straight toward the towering and magnificent castle that rose above Lucian City.
At the castle gates, Aaron presented his identification to the guards on duty. The guard accepted it and said, "Please wait here for a moment." He then turned and entered the castle to report to the king. At that moment, Lucian was handling official affairs in his study when a guard hurried in.
Your Majesty Lucian, there is an envoy outside claiming to be from Rhoda City.
He says his name is Aaron, and he has brought a Pokémon with him.
Lucian paused. Aaron?
That is what he claims, the guard replied.
This is a token from Queen Rin.
He handed over a parchment.
Lucian took it and saw Queen Rin's name written clearly upon it.
Let him in, Lucian said without hesitation.
Yes, Your Majesty.
The guard returned to the castle gates and gestured respectfully. Sir, please follow me.
Aaron nodded and entered the castle alongside Lucario.
When they stepped into the throne room, both of them instinctively focused on the figure seated upon the throne.
What kind of man was he?
His features were strikingly handsome, yet that youthful face carried an undeniable sense of authority. Draped in elegant and luxurious royal robes, he sat calmly, radiating quiet majesty. The instant Aaron saw him, he froze. He had not expected the new king of the Eindhoven kingdom to be so young.
Your Majesty Lucian, Aaron said, recovering himself. He performed a standard knight's salute and continued, My name is Aaron. I come from Rhoda City on the Kanto continent.
I am here under the orders of Queen Rin to visit the king of the Eindhoven kingdom.
Lucian did not speak immediately. Standing beside Aaron, Lucario felt its heart tighten.
From the man on the throne, it sensed an overwhelming presence.
Thick, powerful aura surged quietly, so vast that it far exceeded the combined aura of both Lucario and Aaron.
Instinctively, Lucario extended its aura senses to investigate. It saw that the king was calmly observing them both, his gaze carrying a faint trace of curiosity.
Lucario's thoughts churned. What was happening? Chapter 203, Heading to Kanto. Ever since he first crossed into this world, Lucian had already heard the name of the Pokémon Master Aaron from Elif. Even though they lived in the same era, Lucian truly had not expected to meet Aaron so soon. At the very least, should it not have waited until steam-powered ships were developed and the Great Age of Discovery officially began? Aaron and Lucario were figures from the movie Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. In that story, Aaron went to the Tree of Beginning to stop a war, but he never returned. Lucario, meanwhile, was sealed inside a staff. Only thousands of years later, when Ash arrived, was the seal broken, and together they uncovered the truth buried in the past. It was precisely because of this story that countless viewers had fallen in love with Lucario. And now, Aaron and Lucario were standing right in front of him. Lucian felt an unmistakable sense of unreality. However, since Aaron and Lucario are here, that means the events of the movie have not yet happened, Lucian thought. War has not broken out in Cameron Palace, and Aaron has not sacrificed himself at the Tree of Beginning. Lucian looked at Aaron and spoke calmly. You should have already met my father. Yes, Aaron replied respectfully. Your father requested that I visit Lucian City and see what kind of changes have taken place under your rule. Have you seen it? Lucian asked. Aaron recalled everything he had witnessed along the way and nodded slightly. I have. It is just that I still do not quite understand how you managed to make Pokémon live alongside humans in such a way. Lucian did not answer immediately. Instead, his gaze shifted to the Lucario standing beside Aaron. How long have you and Lucario been together? Lucario was momentarily startled. Aaron glanced at it and answered, nearly 10 years. Lucian smiled faintly. Then I believe you already have the answer. Aaron froze briefly. Lucian continued. Humans and Pokémon are both part of this world. In Rhoda, you have also learned to use Pokémon power to accomplish tasks. Humans discovered long ago that Pokémon possess tremendous strength. They can bring profound changes to human life. Learning to make use of that power was inevitable. The difference is in how it is done. Your side relies on force, restraints, and coercion. Here, we chose a different path. One that benefits humans and Pokémon alike. A mutually beneficial coexistence. As an Aura Guardian, Aaron was exceptionally perceptive. Combining Lucian's words with his own relationship with Lucario, understanding dawned quickly. This was a path they had never truly considered before. Your Majesty, Aaron said sincerely, you are young, yet remarkably far-sighted. Lucian smiled. Seeing a familiar figure from his previous world brought him genuine comfort. Just call me Lucian, he said, then asked, how are things in Cameron Palace lately? Under Queen Rin's governance, things remain stable, Aaron replied. Lucian nodded thoughtfully. The Kanto continent. That likely referred to what would later be known as the Kanto and Johto regions. Many Pokémon lived there that did not exist in Unova. Miltank, whose milk could strengthen the human body. Chansey, gentle and kind, perfect for assisting Nurse Joy. Mr. Mime, excellent at household work. Originally, Lucian had planned to wait until steamships were completed before beginning large-scale exploration and introducing these Pokémon to Unova. But now that Aaron was here, that plan could change. Through Aaron, he could reach the Kanto regions far earlier than expected. With enough Pokeballs and diplomatic backing, introducing Pokémon from that land would not be difficult. More importantly, with Dragonite and Kyurem, the distance between the two continents could be crossed within a single day. The more Lucian thought about it, the more tempted he became. Still, he restrained himself. Aaron had just arrived after a long journey. It would be rude to push such matters immediately. Lucian looked at Aaron and Lucario. You have traveled far. Stay in the city today and rest well. Elif, arrange accommodations for our guests. As you command, Your Majesty, Elif replied. He stepped forward and said politely, Sir Aaron, please follow me. Aaron nodded. He truly was tired. He bowed to Lucian, then followed Elif with Lucario to their quarters.
Sir Aaron, Elif said along the way, many shops in Lucian City sell food specially prepared for Pokémon.
I believe you and Lucario may enjoy them. Food specially prepared for Pokémon? Aaron glanced at Lucario, then nodded. We will take a look.
Soon, they arrived at their lodging. Please rest well, Elif said.
If you need anything, the maids are at your service. I understand, Aaron replied. Elif then withdrew. Back in the room, Aaron intended to rest properly. However, he noticed Lucario repeatedly glancing out the window. Aaron immediately understood.
It must have heard about the Pokémon food and wanted to try it. Seeing this, Aaron could not help but smile helplessly. Lucario, he said, standing up, let's go for a walk through the city.
Lucario was stunned for a moment, then asked through aura, Sir Aaron, do you not need to rest?
Aaron shook his head gently.
Do not worry.
More than resting, I want to see for myself how humans and Pokémon live together in this place.
Yes, Sir Aaron, Lucario replied.
Compared to Rhoda, Cameron Palace, the streets of Lucian City were clean, beautiful, and grand. The roads were paved with neat red bricks, and flower beds lined both sides, planted with all kinds of flowers.
Small Pokémon lived among them, giving the city both the bustling vitality of a royal capital and the gentle breath of nature.
Residents strolled leisurely along the streets. Now and then, tired commoners sat beside the flower beds to rest. As for Pokémon, people showed no fear at all.
Instead, there was a relaxed familiarity, as if they were interacting with fellow humans. In the past, when Aaron and Lucario walked through Rhoda, the gazes of commoners would inevitably gather on them.
Here, people merely glanced their way, offered a friendly smile, and continued with their own business. So this is what coexistence between humans and Pokémon looks like, Aaron murmured thoughtfully. If only Rhoda could be like this as well, Lucario said quietly.
It will be, Aaron replied softly.
This journey to Lucian City was not merely a visit. It was a chance to learn, so that he could bring these ideas back to Cameron Palace and offer guidance to Queen Rin. For example, learning how to harness Pokémon power and apply it to both military affairs and daily life, thereby strengthening the nation as a whole. If they could truly make use of Pokémon as skillfully as Eindhoek did, then perhaps the looming war would no longer be so frightening.
Come take a look.
Snacks made with fresh sweet honey.
A shout suddenly broke Aaron out of his thoughts. He looked up and realized that they had unknowingly entered the commercial district.
Shops lined the streets on both sides. Bakeries, tailor shops, restaurants, inns, barbershops, and bathhouses stood shoulder to shoulder. People moved through the streets in a steady flow, and among them were countless Pokémon. Several children stood in front of a bakery's glass window with their Pokémon, staring at the beautifully shaped, soft, sweet bread inside with longing expressions. Nearby, a group of noble women sat in front of a shop with their Lillipup and Skitty, chatting leisurely while shop assistants gently combed the Pokémon's fur with wooden brushes.
This place was unbelievably prosperous. In Rhoda, such a scene would likely only appear during major festivals.
When Aaron noticed flying Pokémon taxis passing overhead from time to time, he immediately understood why.
With such convenient transportation, citizens of Eindhoek could travel freely between cities. No wonder the economy here was so vibrant. Sniff, sniff.
Just as Aaron was marveling at the scene, Lucario suddenly twitched its nose, clearly catching a scent in the air. Aaron was momentarily surprised. Then he felt a surge of joy and excitement ripple through Lucario's aura.
Lucario? Did you notice something?
Sir Aaron, Lucario replied, unable to hide its excitement, it smells really good. As it spoke, its eyes drifted toward a specific direction.
Aaron followed its gaze and saw a shop at the end of the street. The storefront looked warm and welcoming.
Hanging above it was a wooden sign carved in the shape of an Eevee's head, with 6 simple characters beside it.
Pokémon Snack Shop.
A large crowd had gathered in front of the shop. Not only humans, but Pokémon of all shapes and sizes as well. Despite their differences, every pair of eyes was fixed on the shop interior.
Behind the glass display window were rows of delicately crafted snacks.
The enticing aroma Lucario had sensed was clearly coming from there.
Let's go take a look, Aaron said. Lucario's eyes immediately lit up.
They made their way to the shop entrance, where they heard the shop assistant calling out enthusiastically.
Do not miss out. Delicious snacks specially researched by His Majesty Lucian for Pokémon. We have Pokeblocks, Poffins, and soufflés.
I even heard that Lord Scurum, the divine dragon at His Majesty's side, loves them.
What? Snacks even Curum likes? Give me one. I want one too. I was here first. The crowd grew even more excited.
Everyone, please do not rush, the shop assistant said helplessly.
There is enough for everyone. Line up properly and take it one at a time.
Sir Aaron, Lucario said hesitantly as it looked at the long line, maybe we should forget it.
Sir Aaron held a noble status. When had he ever stood in line like this before?
Do not worry, Lucario, Aaron said gently, shaking his head. He joined the queue behind the crowd, waited patiently, and after some time purchased a Pokeblock and a Poffin. He placed them into a paper bag and handed it to Lucario.
Sir Aaron.
Lucario had watched the entire process, and its heart was deeply stirred. Try them, Aaron said calmly. I have heard these are foods made especially for Pokémon.
Lucario nodded.
It took a Pokeblock and placed it into its mouth. In an instant, an intense and layered flavor spread across its senses.
Lucario's pupils contracted, and a bright light burst from its eyes. This was unbelievably delicious.
It had never tasted anything like this before. Lucario ate with clear delight, while Aaron stood quietly beside it, watching with a gentle smile.
After a long while, Lucario finally came back to itself and hurriedly spoke. Thank you, Sir Aaron.
There is no need to thank me, Aaron replied softly.
Just as His Majesty Lucian said, there is no master and servant between us.
He paused briefly, then continued.
We are friends who live and walk together. Sir Aaron. Lucario's eyes grew moist.
Finish eating, Aaron said warmly.
Once you are done, we will return and rest properly. Yes, Sir Aaron.
Inside the castle, Lucian was reading a book titled Annals of the Continent. Its author was a traveler said to have journeyed across many lands. One of the book's central ideas was that the world consisted of far more than a single landmass. The Pokémon world from thousands of years ago appeared to differ greatly from the one Lucian remembered. Now, he was carefully searching for clues about other regions within its pages.
Your Majesty, Elif asked hesitantly, do you truly intend to travel to the Kanto continent? Lucian nodded. I have read that many Pokémon not found in Unova live there.
They possess remarkable abilities and could play an important role in the kingdom's development.
He continued calmly.
Furthermore, with Curum, I can travel between the two lands in less than a day. All he would need was a sufficient supply of Pokeballs to bring Pokémon from the Kanto region back to Unova. After a moment's thought, Lucian added, prepare 500 Pokeballs for me. I understand, Your Majesty, Elif replied softly before turning to carry out the order. Left alone, Lucian continued studying the illustrations of distant lands in the book, his thoughts growing deeper. Not only Kanto, he murmured to himself, but also Galar, Paldea, Hoenn, Kalos, and Sinnoh. He paused.
No.
At this point in time, Sinnoh should still be known as the Hisui region.
Chapter 204, Rayquaza.
The next day, Aaron and Lucario requested another audience. They stood before the young king, and Aaron bowed deeply before speaking.
Your Majesty Lucian, there is something I do not understand. I hope you can answer it for me.
What is your question?
Lucian asked calmly.
Wild Pokémon are extremely resistant to humans, Aaron said seriously. Many of them attack humans the moment they see them, and they are incredibly difficult to approach.
How did you manage to let these Pokémon live together with humans inside the same city as they do now?
As long as one is determined, nothing is impossible, Lucian replied.
Pokémon are not savage or mindless. They possess intelligence and emotions just like humans.
Among them, intelligence differs by species. But from my observations, the most intelligent Pokémon already possess intellect no weaker than that of humans. And even the most clumsy Pokémon still have intelligence comparable to that of a human child.
Which means they can understand what we say. Hearing this, Aaron fell into deep thought. In that instant, many images surfaced in his mind. Lucario.
The Pidgeot he had once ridden. The Pokémon living in Cameron Palace.
None of them had ever been beings incapable of communication. What humans and Pokémon truly lack is communication, Lucian continued when he saw Aaron's dazed expression. Pokémon, like humans, have needs.
Some Pokémon want to never go hungry and wish to eat delicious food whenever they like.
Some want a safe place to live. Shelter from wind and rain. Warmth. Some fear loneliness. They do not want to be alone.
They want companionship and connection.
And some want to become stronger.
They desire growth and power.
All of these needs can be met by humans. So we began raising Pokémon.
We provide food, share living spaces, and let them stay in homes built by humans so they no longer need to endure harsh environments. For lonely Pokémon, there are people willing to play with them and provide companionship. For Pokémon that want to grow stronger, there are trainers who specialize in nurturing them and helping them develop. Trainers, Lucian added, looking at Aaron, just like you guide Lucario in mastering Aura. So that is how it works, Aaron said, his eyes suddenly brightening with understanding. And for humans, Lucian continued, the power possessed by Pokémon allows us to live better and more convenient lives.
Coexistence is not a one-sided benefit. It is advantageous to both humans and Pokémon. When Pokémon understand this, they naturally stop rejecting humans.
I understand now, Aaron said, bowing deeply.
Thank you very much for your explanation, Your Majesty Lucian.
There is no need to thank me, Lucian replied calmly. I hope that one day, humans and Pokémon across the entire world can live together as we do. Such a world would surely be far more beautiful.
The entire world.
Aaron was momentarily stunned. Recalling everything he had seen and heard over the past few days, he found himself unable to refute that vision.
Lucian then looked at him again and asked, when do you plan to return to Cameron Palace? Aaron straightened immediately.
I plan to depart this afternoon, he said seriously. The situation in Rhoda remains unstable.
Queen Rin still needs Lucario and me. Lucian was not surprised. Although Unova's war had ended, conflict elsewhere remained common. Most regions were still fragmented. Once unification began, interregional wars would inevitably follow. Lucian nodded slightly. How do you intend to return?
By ship, Aaron replied.
Our sailing vessel is docked at Castelia City's port. How long would the journey take? Lucian asked. At best, 1 month. At worst, several months, Aaron answered. It depends entirely on sea conditions. Storms or tsunamis could delay us significantly. There was also the constant risk of shipwreck and death at sea.
I see, Lucian said thoughtfully. Then he smiled.
Since it takes so long, why don't I give you and Lucario a ride instead?
Aaron froze.
Your Majesty, what do you mean?
With Kyurem's speed, we can reach the Kanto continent in less than half a day, Lucian said calmly. Since Queen Rin cares so deeply about Eindhoek, it would be only proper for me to pay her a visit at Cameron Palace.
Aaron's mind went blank. Half a day? The vast ocean separating the two continents, crossed in half a day?
He stared at Lucian, stunned beyond words.
After a brief pause, reason returned.
If that was truly possible, it would save enormous time and danger. Then, thank you very much, Your Majesty Lucian, Aaron said sincerely.
Lucian smiled. Return and pack your belongings. We will depart this afternoon. Yes, Your Majesty.
Aaron and Lucario withdrew, while Lucian stayed behind to finish handling state affairs.
Shortly afterward, Elif returned.
Your Majesty Lucian, the Pokeballs you requested are ready. Behind him, attendants carried in a large bundle. 500 Pokeballs. No more, no less. At present, Pokeballs still could not shrink automatically. Even if they were convenient to carry, bringing too many would still become cumbersome. This was also why Lucien had not brought more Pokeballs, choosing to prepare only 500. His plan was simple. First, introduce Pokémon unique to the Kanto region. Then, through the nursery in Lucien City, carry out systematic breeding and nurturing, allowing them to lay eggs and hatch new offspring. Pokémon matured at astonishing speeds. For example, it took less than a week for a Miltank to grow from hatching into a fully developed individual. Once introduced, these Pokémon would multiply rapidly and take root in the land. Before long, their numbers would expand until they fully integrated into Eindhoek. If only Hoopa were here, Lucien could not help but think. With Hoopa's rings, traveling anywhere would be effortless. Their utility was no different from a mythical doorway that led anywhere instantly. Hoopa should be near Dahara City in the Kalos region right now, Lucien mused. When I have time in the future, I can go take a look. That afternoon, Aaron finished packing and arrived at the castle early. Lucien arranged for Reshiram and Zekrom to remain behind to guard Lucien City, while he prepared to travel to Cameron Palace with Kurum. Even though it was not their first meeting, the moment Aaron saw the immense and majestic divine dragon, shock still flashed across his face. How did His Majesty Lucien manage to command such an existence? Your Majesty, I am ready, Aaron said calmly. Lucien glanced at the bundle Aaron carried. Inside were local specialties purchased in Lucien City, most likely Pokeblocks and Poffins for Lucario. The sweet scent drifting from the bag confirmed his guess. In that case, let us begin, Lucien said with a nod. He stepped forward and mounted Kurum's back. Lucien and Kurum then turned their gaze toward Aaron and Lucario together. Lucario stiffened. Being stared at by Kurum made its instincts scream in alarm. It sent a hesitant message through Aura. Sir Aaron, are we really going to ride on this great one's back? Aaron was also tense. But Lucien spared them further awkwardness. Kurum lowered its body and extended an arm toward them. Aaron and Lucario carefully climbed up. Once everyone was settled, Kurum spread its wings and soared into the sky. Pokémon possessed the ability to alter their size. This principle formed the foundation of Pokeball technology. Legendary Pokémon, in particular, had mastered this ability to an extraordinary degree. While residing in the castle, Kurum usually maintained a height of around 3 meters. Now, its body expanded to nearly 10 meters tall. The sight was awe-inspiring and intimidating. At the same time, Kurum's massive back easily accommodated Lucien, Aaron, and Lucario. After Aaron pointed out the direction of Cameron Palace, he and Lucario sat cross-legged respectfully on the dragon's back. Kurum's speed was astonishing. Before long, they left the land of Unova behind and reached the open sea. Lucien gazed down at the endless expanse of blue below, his heart filled with excitement. At last, he was heading to other regions. Your Majesty, Aaron asked after a while, glancing at the large bundle beside Lucien, what are those items? Pokeballs, Lucien answered honestly. To be frank, besides visiting Queen Rin, I have another purpose for this trip. What might that be? Aaron asked, slightly surprised. I have heard that many Pokémon not found in Eindhoek live in Rota region, Lucien said. I intend to bring some of them back so they can live alongside humans. So that is the case, Aaron said with sudden understanding. I will report this matter to Queen Rin. When the time comes, Rota will provide as much assistance as possible. Then I thank you in advance, Lucien replied with a smile. He then began asking Aaron about Pokémon such as Miltank, Chansey, Mr. Mime, and Growlife. Miltank, Aaron said thoughtfully, I have indeed heard of them. They can produce large quantities of fresh milk. Some commoners even make a living by raising them. As for Chansey, he continued, there was a period a few years ago when their eggs became extremely popular. Their flavor was considered exceptional, especially among nobles. Aaron paused slightly. He did not voice the rest. Those nobles had spent enormous sums hiring hunters to capture Chansey in the wild solely for their eggs. Although Aaron found such practices cruel, he knew that with his own limited power, he could not change the actions of the nobility. Lucien fell silent for a moment. If his memory was correct, Chansey had become rare in later eras precisely because of excessive hunting for their eggs. But in this time period, their population should still be abundant. In that case, he could simply bring back a large number of Chansey, allowing those gentle Pokémon to live peacefully in the Unova region. Mr. Mime, Aaron continued, I have seen them among traveling performers. They often appear in performance troupes. As for Growlithe, their temperament is upright and loyal. Some serve alongside the soldiers of Cameron Palace, guarding the city together with them. Aaron answered Lucien's questions one by one. Lucien nodded thoughtfully. On this journey, Miltank, Chansey, and Growlithe were the most important Pokémon to introduce first. Others could wait for the time being. After all, Moo Moo Milk, Chansey's eggs and healing abilities, and Growlithe's sense of justice and loyalty were of immediate value to Unova. Kyurem's speed was astonishing. The scenery below rushed past in a blur, seas and landmasses vanishing behind them. Before long, they crossed another stretch of ocean and arrived above a vast continent. Lucien looked down at the unfamiliar terrain, momentarily startled. Is this the Kanto continent? He asked. Aaron studied the land carefully, then shook his head. Your Majesty, this is not Kanto. This land is known as the Hoenn continent. Hoenn. The land of Groudon and Kyogre. A region rich with Pokémon unseen in Unova. Trico. Torchic. Mudkip. Slaking. Makuhita. Mawile. Plusle and Minun. Torkoal. Salamence. Metagross. Lucien's heart stirred. This was a place he absolutely had to visit someday. He took out a small notebook and carefully recorded the Hoenn region's location and travel route. Just then, Kyurem abruptly slowed. The divine dragon halted midair, hovering silently as its gaze fixed on a thick bank of clouds ahead. Lucien and Aaron both sensed the sudden change. What is it, Kyurem? Lucien asked. Before his words fully faded, the clouds ahead churned violently. A thunderous roar echoed across the sky. An enormous green figure burst through the cloud layer and soared forward, stopping at a distance and staring at Kyurem with open wariness. Chapter 205. Territory Invasion, Kyurem vs. Rayquaza. It was a green, serpentine dragon Pokémon, its body long and majestic. Rudder-like fins lined its flanks, with another at the tip of its tail. Golden, ring-shaped ancient patterns spiraled from the end of its tail all the way to the yellow ring crowning its head. Two powerful limbs extended from its body, each ending in 3 tyrannosaur-like claws. From its head rose 2 long, flat, horn-like protrusions that stretched backward like blades. At this moment, the sky dragon hovered in the air, staring at Kyurem with wary eyes filled with hostility. That was Rayquaza. The legendary ruler of the skies, a divine Pokémon said to command the air currents themselves. Why had it appeared here so suddenly? Lucien felt a flicker of unease. But the moment he met Rayquaza's gaze, he understood. Rayquaza had clearly sensed Kyurem's overwhelming aura and had mistaken them for intruders trespassing into its territory. Just like Deoxys in the legends. Merely crashing into the atmosphere had once been enough to make Rayquaza pursue it across the world. Kyurem slowly exhaled a breath of icy mist. Your Majesty Lucien, Aaron said quietly, his voice tense. Why has that Pokémon appeared so abruptly? Both Aaron and Lucario could feel it. A massive aura pressed down like a mountain, filled with barely restrained rage. Lucien did not answer immediately. He rose to his feet, stepped forward along Kyurem's back, and attempted to speak. Rayquaza, we mean no harm. We are only passing through your skies. Before he could finish, Rayquaza moved. Sensing a threat unlike any ordinary being, it unleashed its strongest attack without hesitation. Green light erupted from its body. Its long form compressed into a streak of emerald brilliance as it pierced the heavens and shot straight toward Kyurem.
Dragon Ascent. Begone. Kyurem's voice boomed with solemn authority.
An absolute cold surged outward, freezing sky and air alike as it collided head-on with Rayquaza's attack.
The two forces met.
A shrill explosion tore through the heavens.
Shockwaves rippled outward like a tsunami, ravaging everything in their path.
In a single exchange, the surrounding world became a dead zone.
Dragon Ascent shattered. Rayquaza's body was hurled backward through the sky. In this first clash, the fully restored Kyurem held the advantage. But in the very next moment, the heavens convulsed. Rayquaza roared.
The sky darkened as violent power surged outward.
Storm clouds twisted into eerie crimson and violet hues.
A blazing meteor, trailing red flame, punched through the clouds and fell.
Then another. And another. It was as though the end of the world had arrived. Draco Meteor. Kyurem merely snorted. It neither dodged nor retreated. An aura of ultimate cold erupted outward, expanding in every direction in an instant. Below them, the sea froze solid, transforming into a vast icy wasteland. Even the air itself seemed to solidify.
The falling meteors froze the moment they touched that cold. Their flames died, and the draconic energy within them fell silent.
Draco Meteor was sealed midair by ice.
This was Kyurem's frozen world.
At the sight, Rayquaza's pupils shrank. Shock flashed across its draconic face. Rayquaza, Lucian said sternly, I told you we mean no harm. We are not invading your territory. Only now did Rayquaza notice the human standing atop the ice dragon.
We are bound for the Kanto continent, Lucian continued. We merely strayed through your skies.
Aaron raised his staff, releasing aura to reinforce Lucian's intent. Rayquaza stared at them in silence. Gradually, the hostility in its aura faded. Understanding dawned.
Let us go, Kyurem, Lucian said. Kyurem gave a low rumble, spread its wings, and swept past Rayquaza, continuing toward the distant horizon.
Silence returned to the sky. Rayquaza remained alone, watching them depart, its thoughts unreadable. It is strong, Kyurem's voice echoed in Lucian's mind once they had left Hoenn's airspace. Lucian did not disagree.
As the third deity of Hoenn, Rayquaza was capable of suppressing both Groudon, god of the land, and Kyogre, god of the sea, at the same time.
And this Rayquaza had not even reached its peak. It had not mega-evolved. As a dragon and flying type, it was 4 times weak to ice.
Against Kyurem, it was heavily restrained.
Had I not met you, I might not have defeated it, Kyurem admitted calmly. Since meeting Lucian, its power had grown tremendously. Truth and ideals had fused, its primordial might had returned, and the unwavering faith of countless people flowed into it. Now, it stood at its peak. Still, Rayquaza intrigued Kyurem.
It was the first being it had encountered that could rival its strength. No matter, Lucian said softly.
We will not be its enemies. Aaron finally found his voice. Your Majesty Lucian, what exactly was that Pokémon? Its power far exceeded anything he had ever seen.
Commanding the weather so casually felt divine. It is Rayquaza, Lucian replied. The sovereign of the sky. A being at the pinnacle of this world.
We call such beings legendary Pokémon.
Or gods.
A god. Aaron murmured.
They possess power great enough to alter the world itself, Lucian continued.
Some could destroy an entire nation without effort. Aaron's pupils shrank. Are they, still Pokémon? Naturally, Lucian answered calmly. They are simply different.
That is why they bear the title of legendary.
Do not worry. Under normal circumstances, they do not appear before humans.
Most legendary Pokémon are either asleep, hidden away, or quietly maintaining the balance of the world.
Only then did Aaron finally exhale.
He dared not imagine what would happen if those legendary Pokémon were to appear openly in the human world, especially if they were to witness how humans treated ordinary Pokémon.
3 hours after leaving Hoenn, land finally appeared once more ahead of them, rising from the sea.
Scattered across the surrounding waters were islands of various sizes.
Lucian watched the archipelago with keen interest. When Aaron and Lucario saw the familiar continent ahead, joy immediately lit up their faces. "Your Majesty Lucian, the Kanto continent has arrived." "So quickly?" Lucian could not help but marvel. Kyurem's speed was truly astonishing.
If the land ahead was the Kanto region, then the islands scattered nearby could only be the Orange Islands from the legends.
The Orange Islands. The stage of the tale known as the Power of One. Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno. And the Guardian of the Seas, Lugia.
Aaron adjusted his bearings, pointed in one direction, and said, "Your Majesty Lucian, Cameron Palace lies that way."
"Kyurem, let us go." With their destination now in sight, Lucian felt a surge of anticipation. The Kanto region.
The place where everything had once begun.
Kyurem skimmed past the Orange Islands and flew into Kanto proper.
Forests, mountains, plains, valleys, and winding streams rushed past beneath them.
At last, among distant peaks, a towering castle emerged. "Your Majesty Lucian, that is Cameron Palace,"
Aaron said, his voice filled with excitement.
Kyurem accelerated toward it.
Yet Lucian's gaze drifted beyond the castle.
Between the mountains, mist hung thick in the air.
Within that veil stood an enormous tree, so vast and ancient that its crown pierced the clouds themselves.
Its trunk was unimaginably thick, its canopy blotting out the sky. At a glance, it seemed to connect heaven and earth. Kyurem also appeared to sense something and glanced in that direction.
Noticing this, Aaron followed Lucian's line of sight and explained, "Your Majesty Lucian, that is the Tree of Beginning." Lucian feigned ignorance.
"The Tree of Beginning?" Aaron nodded. "They say it appeared when the world was born. It is the source of all life."
Lucian silently acknowledged the claim. After all, Mew carried the genetic essence of all Pokémon. While he pondered this, Kyurem descended and landed within Cameron Palace. The arrival of such a colossal being immediately threw the city into turmoil.
Alarms rang out as soldiers rushed forward, weapons raised, staring nervously at Kyurem.
"There is no need for alarm."
Aaron's voice rang out as he and Lucario leapt down from Kyurem's back.
The crowd froze.
"Lord Aaron? Weren't you sent to the kingdom of Eindhoek?"
Moments later, Queen Rin hurried out from the castle. She had golden hair, a jeweled crown upon her head, and held a scepter adorned with precious gems.
"Aaron," she exclaimed. "You are back so soon? And this is—"
Her gaze fell upon Kyurem, shock plain on her face.
"Your Majesty Queen Rin," Aaron said, bowing. "The new king of Eindhoek, His Majesty Lucian, brought me back. This being is called Kyurem.
It is a companion of His Majesty." Only then did Queen Rin notice the young man standing calmly behind Aaron.
"King
Lucian," she said uncertainly. Lucian stepped forward slightly and inclined his head.
"Greetings, Lady Rin. I am Lucian, the new king of Eindhoek. It is a pleasure to meet you." Queen Rin's expression froze. Eindhoek lay unimaginably far from Cameron Palace. How had he arrived so quickly? And as a reigning monarch, how could he leave his kingdom so freely?
"I have come to visit you, Lady Rin," Lucian continued calmly, "and to discuss matters of cooperation. These concerns affect the development and future of both our realms, so I felt it necessary to come in person." It took Queen Rin several moments to regain her composure. "You may all withdraw," she ordered, waving her hand. The knights and guards lowered their weapons and stepped back. She then turned to Lucian and said gently, "Lord Lucian, please come with me." They entered the castle's council hall. Maids soon brought black tea and pastries, setting them before Lucian. "These are pastries from Rhoda," Queen Rin said. "You must be weary after such a journey. Please rest and refresh yourself. I have already ordered a banquet prepared."
Thank you, Lucian replied, taking a sip of tea.
The war in Eindhoven has ended, he continued.
The land is now unified under my rule. We are entering a period of development. To be direct, I have come to ask a favor of you.
And what might that be?
Queen Rin asked, curiosity evident.
After all, Rhoda was a small state within Kanto, far inferior in scale and strength to a fully unified Eindhoven. I wish for your assistance in locating certain specific magical beasts, Lucian said carefully. He nearly said Pokémon, then adjusted his wording so she would understand.
Magical beasts? Queen Rin's surprise deepened.
In exchange, Lucian said evenly, Eindhoven will share with you the methods by which we coexist with and command these creatures. This knowledge will allow you to better harness their strength for the development and protection of your realm. A storm erupted in Queen Rin's heart.
Methods to command monsters?
Her mind immediately returned to the terrifying being she had just witnessed descending from the sky.
Could Lucian truly be offering a way to work with beings like that? Chapter 206, The Tree of Beginning. To tell you the truth.
Lucian set down the cup of black tea in his hand and continued calmly. Eindhoven has already mastered the method of living together with Pokémon. With their assistance, our national strength has increased rapidly. Our army, agriculture, transportation, commerce, and every other aspect of society have undergone tremendous development.
For example, wheat that once required 4 to 5 months to mature now ripens in just 2 months with the help of Pokémon. 2 months?
Queen Lin cried out in shock.
Does that mean my people will never have to go hungry again? Her eyes trembled with disbelief and hope. There would never again be anyone starving to death. Everyone could eat their fill and eat well. Aaron, is all of this truly possible?
It is, Lucian replied with a gentle smile. If the Pokémon tending the fields are strong enough, the growth cycle can be shortened even further.
Some crops can mature in just over a month. Just over a month?
Queen Lin was stunned beyond words. As a ruler, she found herself unable to react, and instinctively turned her gaze toward her most trusted knight. Aaron met her eyes and nodded solemnly, confirming that Lucian's words were true. Queen Lin felt her thoughts nearly grind to a halt.
After a long moment of silent calculation, she spoke again. What Lord Lucian asks for is not an unreasonable request.
I will immediately send people to search for the Pokémon you require. As for the rest of the proposal, I must discuss it with my ministers. I hope Lord Lucian can understand.
It is already late. You may stay in the city tonight. By tomorrow, I will give you my answer. Lucian inclined his head. Naturally.
He took his leave and was guided by a maid to a guest chamber.
After Lucian departed, Queen Lin finally turned to Aaron. Aaron, she asked quietly, what exactly happened in Eindhoven?
Aaron steadied himself and began recounting everything he had witnessed.
The divine dragon Kurum.
The battle of the 3 dragons.
The renaming of magical beasts as Pokémon. Humans living alongside Pokémon. The flying Pokémon taxi system.
By Pokémon flying taxi, it takes less than half a day to travel from the port to the castle in Eindhoven, Aaron concluded.
Less than half a day? Queen Lin exclaimed.
This time, it was not the travel time alone that shocked her.
It was the implication.
In Cameron Palace, Aaron's Pidgeot could carry people, but only Aaron could use it. It was a privilege, not infrastructure. But in Eindhoven, such travel was available to everyone.
Flying taxis could move not only people, but goods. Such a system would completely transform commerce. The divine dragon Kurum.
A young monarch who unified an entire continent.
The abolition of slavery. The integration of Pokémon into daily life. The explosive development of agriculture and trade. These legendary deeds echoed endlessly in Queen Lin's mind.
She slowly closed her eyes, awe filling her heart. King Logan, your youngest son, your third prince, has surpassed all expectations.
He accomplished what we never dared to attempt.
Such achievements would surely be remembered for thousands of years.
At last, she opened her eyes. Aaron! I am here.
What Pokémon does Lord Lucian wish to locate? She asked. Aaron recalled Lucian's words and answered carefully.
Miltank. Chansey. Growlithe. Mr. Mime. Queen Lin nodded. Issue orders immediately. Mobilize all available resources to locate these Pokémon and bring them to the royal city.
As you command, Queen Lin, Aaron replied. Lucian and his companions were arranged in guest quarters on the third floor of Cameron Palace. The room connected to an open terrace, from which the towering silhouette of the Tree of Beginning could be seen in the distance.
Woo! Dragonite stared at the massive tree, curiosity flickering in its eyes.
That is the Tree of Beginning, Lucian explained.
Woo! Dragonite was stunned.
It had never seen such an enormous tree before.
Do not rush, Lucian said with a smile. When night falls, we will go and take a closer look. He knew well that the mythical Pokémon Mew resided there.
Mew shared a symbiotic bond with the Tree of Beginning. If the tree withered, Mew would die.
If Mew weakened, the tree would collapse. In the future that Lucian remembered, Aaron would save Cameron Palace by transferring his aura to Mew and the tree, using their power to end a catastrophic conflict. As that memory surfaced, the image of Mew appeared in Lucian's mind. A small, pink, cat-like Pokémon. Adorable. Lucian wanted to see it in person. Even if he could not catch it, simply petting it would be enough.
Just then, a knock sounded at the door.
Your Majesty Lucian, a maid said softly, Queen Lin has sent black tea and snacks for you.
Please come in, Lucian replied.
The maid entered, set the tray on the table, and bowed. The banquet will be ready shortly. Queen Lin will invite you to dine in the banquet hall. Very well, Lucian said. Then he added, could you bring me a map of the Kanto continent? The maid was surprised by the request, but nodded quickly. Please wait a moment.
She soon returned with a rolled parchment.
Lucian unfolded the map.
The depiction of the Kanto continent was crude, but clear enough. One feature stood out immediately. A vast mountain range split the continent straight through the center.
That must be Mten Silver, Lucian murmured. And on the other side of Mte Silver lies the Johto region, the domain of the legendary Pokémon Ho-Oh.
However, in this era, the bell tower has likely not yet been built, and the three guardians of Ho-Oh, Nti, Reiku, and Suicune, probably have not appeared in this world yet, Lucian thought to himself. His gaze then shifted toward the location of Cameron Palace. The castle lay within the mountains north of a territory known as the Pewter Fief, near a massive mountain called Nti Moon. Based on the geographical layouts he remembered from the games and anime, Lucian's eyes drifted toward another corner of the map. That should be where Pallet Town would one day stand. But in this era, Pallet Town did not yet exist. It was still a forested mountain region, or perhaps no more than a nameless and isolated village.
What a pity!
Lucian had originally hoped to see what Pallet Town looked like thousands of years ago.
Now, he could only abandon that thought.
Outside, the sky gradually darkened. The setting sun dyed the horizon blood red. After a long day's work, the people returned to their homes, lit oil lamps with their families, and gathered around their dinner tables. Inside the castle banquet hall, a red carpet stretched across the floor. A long dining table was filled with a dazzling spread of delicacies, while golden candelabra bathed the hall in warm light.
Queen Lin sat at the table with a gentle smile and addressed Lucian. Lord Lucian, these are some of Rhoda's local specialties. I hope you enjoy them.
Thank you for your hospitality, Your Majesty, Lucian replied with a smile.
The banquet was deliberately free of politics.
They spoke instead of family matters, of the old king's condition, and of mundane affairs. Under the bright lights, the atmosphere was relaxed and lively. At the same time, high atop the castle roof, a Pidgeot descended silently from the sky. Its sharp eyes drifted toward the illuminated banquet hall below, drawn by the warmth and noise.
Without hesitation, it leapt from the rooftop.
Just before landing, a thick white light enveloped its body. Within that glow, its form rapidly shrank and changed. When the light faded, a small, adorable Pikachu landed lightly on the banquet hall window ledge. The Pikachu clung to the stone wall with tiny paws, peering curiously inside. Pika Pi? A maid serving Queen Lin happened to glance upward. But there was nothing there. Only the round moon hung quietly in the night sky beyond the window. Was I imagining it? She murmured. Shaking her head, she dismissed the thought and returned to her duties. Meanwhile, atop the ornate chandelier above the banquet hall, an even smaller Piku suddenly appeared. It stood there silently, watching. My father is doing well, Lucien said softly. With Victini by his side, he is not lonely. That is good, Queen Lin replied. She had once worried that Logan would be devastated by the conflict between his sons. But now, it seemed he had found peace. Though he would surely miss the first and second princes, Lucien's decision not to execute or imprison them was, in her eyes, merciful. Had either of the other two prevailed, the outcome might have been far bloodier. As glasses clinked and laughter faded, the banquet came to an end. Thank you again for your hospitality, Lucien said. Please rest well tonight, Queen Lin replied warmly. I have already dispatched people to search for the Pokémon you requested. You have my gratitude. Lucien returned to his chamber and stepped onto the terrace, gazing at the tree of beginning looming in the distance beneath the night sky. With a thought, Dragonite appeared beside him. Lucien climbed onto its back, patted its head, and smiled. Let's go, Dragonite. Let's take a closer look. Woo! Dragonite beat its wings and rose into the moonlit sky, flying toward the tree of beginning. At the same time, in the castle attic, a Piku struggled across the floor, dragging a doll larger than itself. Just as it was about to act, it noticed a figure flying toward the distant tree. Shoo! Its eyes widened. A brilliant white light enveloped its body. When the glow vanished, a majestic bird with golden-red feathers and rainbow-hued plumage stood upon the roof. Ho-Oh! The legendary Pokémon of myth. Clutching the doll in its talons, Ho-Oh spread its wings and followed after the departing figure. The tree of beginning lay far from Cameron Palace. Though it appeared close, the distance was vast, its surroundings shrouded in mist and winding peaks. Yet guided by Kurum's presence, Lucien passed through the fog with ease. Soon, they stood beneath the colossal tree. Lucien gazed upward. Its trunk vanished into the clouds, its boundaries impossible to discern. A faint glow pulsed through its bark. So big, unbelievably big. Woo! Dragonite noticed clusters of beautiful flowers growing around the tree and plucked one with care, offering it to Lucien. For me? Lucien smiled, then suddenly froze. These were time flowers. Rare blooms that recorded the present and replayed it thousands of years later. Everything happening here now could already be preserved, waiting to be shown to future generations. A one-time recording device, Lucien mused. As he studied the flowers, Dragonite suddenly stiffened. Lucien turned sharply. Nothing. Something was wrong. A heartbeat later, he spun around. Behind him hovered a small pink figure. Moo! Caught, Mew tilted its head, eyes bright with curiosity. Mao? Chapter 207, World Tree and Mew. Mew. The small pink Pokémon hovered in the air, a doll sewn from cloth and wool clutched tightly in its arms. Mao? It glanced between Lucien and Dragonite, then suddenly retreated a short distance. No. Mew. Lucien murmured softly. Mo. Mew covered its mouth as it giggled, then turned and flew toward the tree of beginning. But it didn't leave outright. After flying a short distance, Mew stopped, turned its head, and looked back at Lucien. Then it flew forward again, only to stop once more. It was clearly teasing them. When Lucien didn't move, Mew slowed and hovered not far away, tilting its head as if urging him to follow. The moment Lucien took a step. No! Mew cried out happily and darted toward the tree of beginning again.
Lucian. As expected, Lucian thought wryly. That really is Mew's personality. Come on, Dragonite. Let's follow it, Lucian said. Woo! Dragonite nodded eagerly. Man and Pokémon followed, but Mew's speed was astonishing. Combined with the Tree of Beginning's winding, layered terrain, it vanished from sight in moments. If this were Ash, Lucian knew he would already be sprinting recklessly after it. But Lucian understood something important. This was Mew's home. If Mew wanted to meet him again, they would. And besides, something else was happening. Rumble. The ground trembled. As if sensing intruders, the Tree of Beginning activated its defenses. 3 colossal figures stepped out from the shadows with heavy, mechanical strides. Whir. The one on the left radiated biting cold, its massive body resembling a living glacier. The one in the center was formed from enormous gray and orange stone, heavy and immovable. The one on the right gleamed with cold metallic luster, its steel body reflecting faint light. Yellow dots patterned their faces and torsos, pulsing rhythmically as if scanning and identifying. Regirock, Regice, Registeel. Lucian narrowed his eyes. The legendary Titans. It seemed that entering the Tree of Beginning would require a battle. Perfect, Lucian thought. I can test how Dragonite measures up against legendary Pokémon. But just as that thought formed, the yellow lights on all 3 Titans stopped simultaneously. Then, to Lucian's surprise, Regirock, Regice, and Registeel stepped aside in unison, clearing the path forward. Lucian froze. What? The dots on Regirock's face flickered briefly, and a strange, grinding sound issued from its mouth. And nano %#. Lucian blinked. Kyurem? Kyurem's presence stirred. One recognized by the Tree of Beginning. Permission granted to enter. Lucian stood there, stunned. Recognized, just like that? After a moment, realization dawned. Everything he had done, ending war, protecting Pokémon, reshaping the world toward coexistence, aligned perfectly with the tree's purpose. It made sense. Lucian inclined his head slightly to the 3 Titans and continued forward with Dragonite. They'd make incredible city guardians, he thought briefly. If only they weren't bound here. Let's go. As he stepped forward, Mew reappeared, this time no longer hiding. It hovered ahead, clearly leading the way. Under Mew's guidance, Lucian navigated the tree's intricate inner passages, rode within a floating energy bubble upward, and passed through a shimmering green membrane. Then, the world opened. Towering trees stretched endlessly upward, leaves dense and vibrant. Flowers bloomed in impossible abundance. Grass shimmered with life, and the air itself felt alive. A paradise. This time, Mew didn't flee. It floated directly in front of Lucian, clutching its doll, gazing up at him with wide, curious eyes. Mew, you brought me here, didn't you? Lucian said gently. No. Mew nodded happily and drifted onward. Lucian followed through tall grass, beneath arching branches, until they reached a vast lake. The moment Lucian saw it, he froze. So many Pokémon. No, more than that. They weren't just Pokémon. They were fossil Pokémon, species that, in the far future, would vanish entirely and exist only through resurrection. Omanite. Omastar. Armaldo. Aerodactyl. And beyond them, Ledian, Nidoran and Nidoran, Yanma, Swablu, Oddish, Raticate, Sandshrew, Taillow. This hidden realm within the Tree of Beginning was a sanctuary. A living archive of the world itself. A fairyland untouched by time. How beautiful, Lucian whispered. Mao? Noticing Lucian had stopped, Mew turned back. Lucian hurried forward. Mew, is this your home? No. Mew flew toward a fallen giant tree. Its trunk was hollow. Mew slipped inside, then a moment later, used Psychic. Clatter!
A pile of toys burst out and scattered across the ground: dolls, trinkets, shiny scraps, odd little treasures. Things Mew had collected from Cameron Palace. But judging from Mew's behavior, it seemed to want to play with these toys together with him. Living alone on the Tree of Beginning all this time, Mew must be very lonely, Lucien thought. A faint ache rose in his chest. Lucien reached into his pocket and took out the poke blocks and poffins he had brought from Lucien City, carefully placing them on the grass in front of Mew. He had prepared these in advance. After all, if he came to the Tree of Beginning, it was almost certain he would meet Mew. Go on, eat, Lucien said gently. These are foods made by humans, poke blocks, and poffins. Mao? Mew landed lightly on the grass, picked up a poke block with its small, paw-padded hands, and took a tentative bite. The next instant, rich sweetness bloomed across its senses. Mew's eyes lit up. No! It immediately began chewing faster, like a tiny hamster. In no time at all, the poke block was gone. Mew licked its lips, clearly unsatisfied. No! Lucien smiled unconsciously. Mew really is adorable when it eats. No! Mew floated over, pushing the toys toward Lucien, clearly inviting him to play. Lucien hesitated. The toys were, honestly, a bit childish. But then he thought about how Mew probably had no one to play with at all. So he sat down. They played together. Time slipped by unnoticed. The sky slowly darkened, and before Lucien realized it, night had fallen. Looking up, the deep blue sky was scattered with countless stars. Even in the darkness, many of the plants growing on the Tree of Beginning emitted a faint glow, soft and gentle, not dazzling, but enough to see clearly. Rustling sounds came from the surrounding forest as wild Pokémon moved about. Nearby, Mew was absorbed in its toys, humming softly to itself. The night was quiet. Peaceful. Beautiful. I have to go now, Mew. Lucien finally spoke. There were important matters waiting for him tomorrow morning. Mao? Reluctance immediately filled Mew's eyes. Don't worry, Lucien said softly. I'll still be staying here for a few days. Once I'm done tomorrow, I'll come back. Meow. Mew hesitated for a moment, then nodded, its mood instantly brightening at the thought. No. Good night, Mew. Lucien gently patted its head. It was fluffy, soft, and unexpectedly warm. Mo. Lucien released Dragonite, mounted its back, and flew out of the Tree of Beginning, returning toward Cameron Palace. Mew remained floating in midair, watching silently as the figures of the man and the dragon grew smaller, until they disappeared entirely. Meow. For the first time in thousands of years, Mew felt something stir inside its heart. All these years, it had lived alone on the vast Tree of Beginning. Sometimes, when loneliness became unbearable, it would sneak down to the human settlement at the foot of the mountain and quietly watch from afar. Human children always looked so happy when they played with toys. So Mew would secretly take some back and bring them home. Without realizing it, the toys had piled up into a small mountain. But today was different. From the moment it saw Lucien, Mew had felt an inexplicable closeness. Maybe it was because the Tree of Beginning had already acknowledged him. And because Mew lived in symbiosis with the tree, that feeling had naturally extended to it as well.
Mew didn't know the answer. But it knew one thing. Lucien was a very, very good human. He brought delicious food. He played with it. And he stayed. Would Lucien really come back tomorrow? He said he would. So he probably would. Mew hugged its doll tightly and looked toward the sky, quietly waiting. For tomorrow. The next day. Queen Rin formally met with Lucien in the council chamber.
Lord Lucien, she said, her expression solemn, I have discussed yesterday's proposal with the ministers. She paused briefly, then continued. If everything is truly as you described, then I am willing to cooperate with you, on behalf of Cameron Palace. Not only for the nation's future, but also because, above all else, as a queen, Queen Rin sincerely hoped that her people would never again have to suffer the torment of hunger. That is only natural, Lucien said calmly. He was not surprised by Queen Rin's decision. Regarding the magical beasts you require, Queen Rin continued, I dispatched people yesterday to search various regions. They will still need some time to return to the royal city.
That's perfectly fine.
I have time, Lucien replied with an understanding nod.
Then he smiled faintly and said, as a gesture of goodwill, I will represent Eindhoven in sharing with Cameron Palace our method of coexisting with magical beasts.
After that, I hope Cameron Palace and Eindhoven can strengthen our ties, whether through daily exchanges or trade. That would be ideal, Queen Rin agreed, though a trace of hesitation flickered in her eyes. However, an ocean lies between our two realms. If we speak of trade, I fear it will not be so simple. Travel by sea demanded both time and fortune. Cameron Palace's shipbuilding techniques were still crude, calm weather was manageable, but storms or tsunamis could easily lead to shipwrecks and loss of life.
In such cases, both cargo and crew would vanish beneath the waves.
You need not worry, Lady Rin, Lucien said gently.
Eindhoven is currently researching a new type of vessel.
Our craftsmen have adopted a completely new form of propulsion. Once completed, the journey from Eindhoven to Cameron Palace will take only 10 days. He paused briefly, then added, more importantly, this ship will be far safer than traditional sailing vessels.
Even storms and oceanic turbulence will no longer pose serious threats. What? Queen Rin's eyes widened in disbelief. Only 10 days?
Compared to the old routes, the time had been reduced by more than 2/3. At once, Aaron's words from the previous day echoed in her mind.
His Majesty Lucien is opening a brand new era. If this were truly possible. Queen Rin suddenly felt a profound premonition.
Perhaps, in the near future, the entire world would be reshaped by this young king. Begin preparations to construct a port at Vermilion Town, Queen Rin said calmly, issuing an order to her ministers. There's no need to rush, Lucien replied with a gentle shake of his head. Meeting Queen Rin's gaze, he continued, if my understanding is correct, Cameron Palace is currently facing the risk of war. It would be wiser to wait until peace returns before gradually expanding our exchanges. Queen Rin paused, then gave a bitter smile. To be honest, 2 neighboring nations have already gone to war. It may not be long before the flames reach our borders. Cameron Palace had always favored peace and restraint. As its queen, Rin desired nothing more than to guide her people toward stable lives, where commoners could eat their fill and need not fear hunger or cold. But the kings of those lands were relentless expansionists. In such a world, neutrality was not a luxury Cameron Palace could afford. Chapter 208, Miltank, Chansey, Grolive, and Toros. But what else could they do?
Queen Rin let out a long sigh.
As a queen, she could not possibly lead her people to surrender their homeland.
Silence fell over the council chamber.
This was the cruel reality facing Cameron Palace.
And moreover, not everyone was Lucien.
Watching her expression, Lucien smiled faintly. He knew better than anyone what fate awaited this land. Before long, the 2 enemy nations would clash in a decisive battle here. Cameron Palace would be dragged into the flames of war, standing on the brink of annihilation. To stop that catastrophe, Sir Aaron the hero would go to the Tree of Beginning. He would pour his aura into Mew and the tree, using their power to halt the war, at the cost of his own life. Lucario would be sealed within the staff. Aaron would do so because he knew that if Lucario followed him, it would make the same sacrifice. He sealed Lucario to spare it that fate. That was how the story was supposed to end. But now, Lucian was here. He had already befriended Aaron. Cameron Palace and Eindhoek had already formed ties. There was no reason, none at all, for that tragedy to repeat itself. Lucian spoke calmly, breaking the silence. If that is the case, perhaps I have a way to help. What? Queen Rin looked up instantly. I will dispatch a force from Eindhoek to station here, Lucian said evenly. You may call it an embassy, a volunteer corps, whatever name you prefer. They will help defend Cameron Palace and prevent the outbreak of war. The eyes of Queen Rin and the ministers lit up at once. But soon, traces of caution appeared among them. Lucian noticed immediately and smiled. Please rest assured. We will not interfere in your internal governance. Our presence is solely to strengthen cooperation between our nations. At the same time, we will teach you the methods of coexisting with magical beasts, helping Cameron Palace enhance its national strength. The ministers fell into deep contemplation. After a long pause, a white-bearded elder stepped forward and asked, puzzled. May I ask why His Majesty Lucian is willing to help Cameron Palace to such an extent? Queen Rin looked over. So did Aaron and Lucario. Lucian answered calmly, as I said, to deepen cooperation between our nations. I would rather not see Cameron Palace destroyed before our trade routes have even begun. Then he added softly. And because I hope the magical beasts of this land may one day live in peace with humans, just as they do in Eindhoek. Of course, there were other reasons. But those needed no words. Lord Lucian truly is a great king, Queen Rin said with a smile. Her hesitation vanished. On behalf of Cameron Palace, I formally establish an alliance with Eindhoek. She extended her hand. Lord Lucian, we will do everything in our power to meet your requests. Lucian stood and clasped her hand firmly. At that moment, Eindhoek and Cameron Palace officially became allies. The matter did not end there. Lucian returned briefly to Eindhoek aboard Kiram, spending half a day clearing the mountain of affairs awaiting him at the castle. Once finished, he returned to Cameron Palace. The search for Miltank, Chansey, and Mr. Mime was still ongoing. Seeing no immediate results, Lucian took the opportunity to visit the Tree of Beginning once more. The moment he arrived, a familiar pink figure appeared. No. Mew looked genuinely delighted. But then it tilted its head, eyes filled with confusion. Mao? Kiram, translate for me, Lucian said. After a brief pause, Kiram's voice echoed in his mind. It asks where you went. It went to the human castle and could not find you. Oh, that? Lucian smiled and gently patted Mew's head. I went home for a bit. Mao? Home? Yes, Lucian nodded. My home is in Eindhoek, very, very far away. I came here riding Kiram. A faraway place. For reasons it didn't understand, a quiet unease surfaced in Mew's heart. If Lucian returned home someday, would it still be able to see him? Mew could not leave the Tree of Beginning. Their bond was absolute. If Lucian left, would they never play together again? The thought made Mew's ears droop slightly, its joy dimming. Lucian noticed at once. Come here, he said gently. He removed the backpack from his shoulders and poured out its contents beside Mew's toy pile, poffins and poke blocks in abundance. These are snacks from my home, Lucian said. There's enough to last you a long time. Mao? I still have things I must take care of, Lucian continued softly. So I might not be able to come play with you for a while. Whether it was Pokémon or the countless affairs awaiting him in Eindhoek, all of it required Lucian's personal attention. Because of that, he couldn't remain in Cameron Palace for long. Yet the moment he finished speaking, he noticed the expression on Mew's small face. Pitiful. Reluctant. Quietly crestfallen. Lucian. If Mew could leave the tree of beginning, he would have taken it back to Eindhoven without hesitation and raised it properly. But that was impossible. Don't be sad, Lucian said gently, smiling as he patted Mew's head. I'll come see you whenever I have time in the future. Meow? Of course it's true. Lucian couldn't help thinking that perhaps Mew had lived alone on the tree of beginning for far too long. Too lonely. Too isolated. Poor little guy. The next day, Queen Rin finally sent word. Aaron and Lucario personally came to inform Lucian. Your Majesty Lucian, we have found the magical beasts you requested. Oh? Lucian's spirits lifted immediately. Take me to see them at once. Please follow me. Aaron led the way. They left the castle and soon arrived at a marble-paved plaza. Many people were already present, guards, maids, officials, and even Queen Rin herself. At the center stood several cold, heavy iron cages. Inside them were rows of Pokémon. Lucian's gaze immediately locked onto one figure. A pink, cow-like Pokémon with a black orb at the tip of its tail. Miltank. The very Pokémon he had been hoping for, the kind capable of producing over 20 liters of nutrient-rich milk per day. Beside them were Pokémon with soft pink bodies, egg-shaped forms, and pouches holding eggs against their bellies. Scarred. Disheveled. Trembling. Chancy. And then, off to the side, sat a group of small orange dog Pokémon with black stripes. They weren't caged at all. Instead, they sat obediently on the ground, tails wagging, barking cheerfully. Growlithe. Lucian's expression softened slightly. Growlithe had lived alongside humans since ancient times. Archaeological records even showed their remains in Stone Age ruins. Loyal. Brave. Clever. Naturally close to humans. Lucian made a quick estimate. Roughly 400 Pokémon in total. Reporting to Your Majesty, a guard stepped forward nervously. Because time was limited, this is all we were able to gather. Queen Rin surveyed the scene, her brows knitting together. Were any of them harmed? No. Absolutely not, the guard shook his head frantically. We intercepted these Pokémon from black market traders. Those traders claimed wealthy nobles paid enormous sums to acquire Chansey for private collections. As for the Miltank, we purchased them from rural farmers. And Slugma. The guard hesitated, then dropped to one knee. That species has molten magma flowing through its body. Our men didn't dare approach. Please forgive us, Your Majesty. Queen Rin turned to Lucian, her expression apologetic. Lord Lucian, please forgive us. Lucian shook his head calmly. There's nothing to forgive. Eindhoven and Cameron Palace are allies now. Cooperation takes time, we don't need to rush. He stepped toward the cages. The Miltank were uninjured. Likely because they had been raised by farmers, they didn't seem especially afraid of humans. But the Chansey. That was another matter entirely. Aaron had already told him. Because their eggs were considered delicacies, Chansey had been hunted relentlessly for years. Nobles paid obscene prices just to obtain those eggs. As a result, Chansey numbers in the wild had plummeted. Nearly all of them feared humans to the core. And now, as Lucian approached, the Chansey inside the cages began to tremble violently, shrinking back in terror. Lucian's gaze lingered on their wounds. The scars told everything. These Chansey had clearly endured terrible things before being brought here. Chansey. He murmured softly. Some of the Chansey recoiled deeper into the cages, faces filled with raw terror. Don't be afraid, Lucian said gently. I won't hurt you. It's all right now. He kept his voice low and calm, careful not to step any closer. But the Chansey's tension did not ease. Why, Your Majesty? The guard beside him hesitated, then spoke quietly. These chancies suffered greatly at the hands of black market traders. They're extremely afraid of people. They may never be able to approach humans the way Growlithe do. I know, Lucian replied. He let out a silent sigh. Beyond Unova, there were still countless places where humans and Pokémon regarded each other as enemies. Lucian said nothing more. Once they returned to Unova, once these chancies saw Lucian City with their own eyes, saw Pokémon walking freely through streets, treated as family rather than property, they would understand. Trust could not be forced. It could only be earned. Lucian shifted his attention to the nearby Miltank. Unlike the Chansey, the Miltank gazed back at him with open curiosity. Hello, Miltank, Lucian greeted them. Moo moo? The Miltank blinked in unison. Queen Rin, Lucian asked, since when has Cameron Palace been raising Miltank? She thought for a moment. A very long time. Miltank are gentle by nature and rarely attack humans. Long ago, wild Miltank would even feel discomfort when their milk built up too much. They'd wander into villages on their own, looking for help. That's how people discovered how nutritious their milk was, and how beneficial it is to the human body. Since then, farmers have raised them willingly. I see. Lucian nodded. That matched what he already knew. Your Majesty, the guard added, we also prepared companion magical beasts to go with the Miltank. At his signal, several large, muscular Pokémon were led forward. Tauros. These are called Tauros, the guard explained. They're temperamental, but farmers use them to breed with Miltank. Perhaps they'll be of use to you. Lucian's eyes lit up. He had nearly forgotten. Miltank were an all-female species. In Kanto, Tauros were their counterpart. Together, they could produce either Miltank or Tauros offspring. A sustainable foundation. Well done, Lucian said sincerely. You've been very thorough. The guard flushed and scratched his head awkwardly. Lucian then turned to the Growlithe. They were sitting neatly in a row. The moment his gaze fell on them, their tails began wagging furiously. Woof! Woof! These Growlithe were originally meant for Cameron Palace's guards, Queen Rin said. But since you need them, Lord Lucian, please accept them as a gift. Thank you, Lucian replied. At last. The final piece fell into place. Though he had yet to meet Jennies in this era, Lucian had a strong feeling they would appear soon enough. Chapter 209, Happy Life. Lucian carefully counted the Pokémon before him. There were 140 Growlithe, 198 Miltank, 103 Chansey, and 5 Tauros reserved for breeding. A total of 446 Pokémon. The Pokeballs he had brought were more than sufficient. With the assistance of the guards, the process went smoothly. One by one, the Pokémon were guided into their Pokeballs. Some of the Chansey resisted at first, trembling and retreating. But under Lucian's gentle assurances and calm promises, they eventually chose to enter. With that, the journey to Kanto had reached a successful conclusion. Queen Rin, Lucian said, turning to Queen Rin, thank you for the help you have provided. It is time for me to return to Eindhoven. Please rest assured, once I arrive, I will dispatch messengers and a force to Cameron Palace as promised. Joy spread across the faces of Queen Rin and the ministers. With Eindhoven's support, they would finally have the strength to weather the coming storm. Before departing, Lucian hesitated for a moment, then looked at Queen Rin again. There is one more matter I would like to ask. Queen Rin straightened. Please speak, Lord Lucian. As long as it is within my ability, I will do my utmost to help. Lucian nodded. The messengers I send will teach you how to live alongside Pokémon. But I also hope Cameron Palace will treat them well, no longer as slaves or tools. Queen Rin froze for a heartbeat. Then she answered without hesitation. I promise. Lucian inclined his head. He then turned to Aaron and Lucario. Aaron, if you ever encounter something beyond your ability to handle, you may go to Eindhoven and seek my help. Aaron was taken aback. Even Queen Rin glanced at him in surprise. After a brief silence, Aaron bowed deeply. "Thank you, Your Majesty Lucian." Lucian smiled faintly, then mounted Kurum and departed Cameron Palace, heading toward the Tree of Beginning. As they flew, Kurum spoke, its voice tinged with curiosity. "Lucian, why do you extend such consideration to that human?" Lucian was quiet for a moment. "He reminds me of an old acquaintance," he replied softly. "In the original world, when Lucario was freed from the scepter, it mistook Ash for Aaron. According to Aaron, every being possessed a unique aura, no two were the same. Yet Ash's aura was identical to Aaron's. Which meant..." Kurum gave a low hum and did not pursue the question further. They soon arrived at the Tree of Beginning. Mew sensed Lucian's presence immediately and flew out to greet him. "No." But when Lucian spoke, Mew's expression fell. "Mew, we came to say goodbye." "Mew." Lucian knelt and gently stroked Mew's soft head. "Don't worry. When we have time, we'll come back to see you." "Meow?" Mew lifted its head again. "Of course it's true," Lucian said with a smile. "No." Mew suddenly extended a tiny paw and curled one claw. "A promise." Lucian paused, then hooked his finger with Mew's. The pact was sealed. After leaving the Tree of Beginning, Lucian returned directly to the Unova region. He landed in the castle courtyard, a heavy bag of Pokeballs at his side. Elif hurried forward to greet him. "Your Majesty, how did matters progress on the Kanto continent?" "It's finished," Lucian replied. "How goes the research on modern steamships?" "Nearly complete," Elif answered promptly. "Production has begun. The first modern steamship should be operational within a month. The steam train is also ready in theory, though the railway construction will take more time." Lucian nodded. The pace was already astonishing. "I have signed an alliance treaty with Queen Rin of Cameron Palace," he said. "Once the steamships are ready, we will officially establish relations. Not just commerce, but diplomacy, military coordination, and technological exchange." Factories were already being established across the kingdom. Once the first international trade route opened, Eindhoven's industrial growth would accelerate dramatically. "Recruit a volunteer force from the army," Lucian continued. "They will be stationed at Cameron Palace as mercenaries, both to help defend it and to teach the local people how to live alongside Pokémon." "Yes, Your Majesty," Elif replied. "I will inform Lord Geralt immediately." Lucian carried the bag of Pokeballs to the private ecological park behind the castle. One by one, he pressed the release buttons. White light flashed. Pokémon that had never existed in Eindhoven before appeared: Miltank, Chansey, Growlithe, and several restless Tauros. Elif froze. "Your Majesty, these are..." "Pokémon from the Kanto continent," Lucian said calmly. "Species unique to that land." Lucian smiled faintly and began explaining. "Miltank can produce extremely nutritious milk. It's highly beneficial to the human body, long-term consumption strengthens the physique. Moreover, a single Miltank can produce up to 20 liters of milk per day." 20 liters. Elif's pupils shrank as his gaze swept over the herd. With nearly 200 Miltank, that meant almost 4,000 liters of milk per day. More importantly, Lucian continued, with them, Eindhoven's food variety will expand dramatically. Milk could be processed into countless foods and drinks. Cheese. Milk tea. Pudding. Custard tarts. Cakes. After a brief shock, joy spread across Elif's face. "Your Majesty," he asked eagerly, "should we assign these Miltank to the ranch owners?" Lucian considered it briefly, then shook his head. "Not yet. First, establish a large, centralized ranch. Settle the Miltank and Tauros there and assign experienced farmers to oversee them. More importantly, there was breeding. At present, Unova only had 198 Miltank. That number was still far too small. Dispersing them prematurely would only slow reproduction. Lucian intended to let them live together first and observe whether they could successfully produce calves with the help of the toros. Elif immediately understood. His gaze drifted toward the 5 toros grazing peacefully nearby. Nearly 200 miltank. 5 toros. Could they handle it? A trace of sympathy appeared on Elif's face. These poor toros probably had no idea what kind of future awaited them. He cleared his throat. Your Majesty, what about the other Pokémon? His gaze shifted to the eager Growlithe, and then to the trembling Chansey. Growlithe, Lucian said, are Pokémon with a strong sense of justice. They're alert, sharp, and naturally upright. They're well suited for police work. Growlithe possessed exceptional olfactory abilities. They could track suspects, locate missing persons, and recover stolen property. They truly are suitable, Elif agreed, watching the little dogs wag their tails energetically. And the Chansey. Lucian paused, then sighed softly. Let them stay here for now. These Chansey had suffered too much. They had been hunted relentlessly. Their eggs stolen. Their bodies scarred. Black market traders cared only for profit. To obtain eggs, they would not hesitate to injure or kill the Chansey themselves. That cruelty was precisely why Chansey numbers would plummet in the future. I understand, Your Majesty, Elif said, bowing slightly. He led the Growlithe, Miltank, and Toros away toward their assigned locations. These Pokémon had lived among humans before. They were familiar with people and followed without resistance. Soon, only the Chansey remained in the ecological park. Don't be afraid, Lucian said gently. It's safe here. No one will hurt you. No one will steal your eggs. Chansey. The Chansey replied softly, voices trembling. Lucian knew words alone were insufficient. Trust had to be seen, not spoken. Come, he said quietly. I'll take you to see the place where we live. Chansey. The Chansey hesitated. From Cameron Palace until now, this human had never harmed them. The humans they remembered had worn greedy expressions. They carried whips. They forced them into iron cages. Some companions had resisted. Those companions never returned. But this human, Lucian, looked at them with pity. With sympathy. With sorrow. Not once had his gaze lingered on the eggs they clutched to their bodies. Not once. Maybe they could try believing him? The thought flickered, then shattered. The scars on their bodies throbbed with memory. The pain was too deep. The fear too ingrained. Follow me, Chansey. Lucian stepped forward. Almost without realizing it, the Chansey obeyed. They followed him out of the castle, their steps hesitant but steady. And the moment they passed through the towering gates, a flood of warm sunlight poured down upon them. Bright. Gentle. Embracing. The sky above was a clear, endless blue, unmarred by iron bars or shadows. The Chansey froze. This sensation, this warmth, had not touched them in a very long time. Chansey. One of them murmured softly. So warm. In the future, Lucian said quietly, you can live freely beneath this sky. Chansey. The Chansey looked up at him. Lucian smiled. Let's keep going. After a moment's hesitation, they nodded and followed him onward. The streets beyond were clean and orderly, bathed in afternoon sunlight. There were few pedestrians at this hour, and those who passed walked leisurely, unhurried. Nearly every person was accompanied by a Pokémon. An elderly woman sat resting on a bench by the roadside. From her bag, she took out small snacks and fed them gently to her Pokémon by hand. The Pokémon ate happily, then rubbed its head against her palm with clear affection. No fear. No restraint. Only warmth. The Chansey watched. They saw the smiles on the Pokémon's faces. No whips. No cages. No greedy eyes. Chansey. Their hearts trembled.
Could they really live like this? Could a place like this truly exist? Chansey? Is it really possible? Hope, small, fragile, but real, began to take shape. Lucien noticed the change and spoke softly, "This is only a part of the city. There's much more." Lucky. This time, the sound carried anticipation. Meanwhile, at an empty ranch on the outskirts of the city. Under Elif's guidance, the Miltank herd had already arrived. "This is where you'll be living from now on," he said. The Miltank moved curiously, looking around at the open fields and fresh grass. Elif then glanced toward the few toros nearby, heads lowered, peacefully grazing, blissfully unaware. He paused. The coming months were going to be very lively for them. Perhaps even exhausting. Chapter 210, Moo Ranch. In Lucien City, a grand spectacle suddenly unfolded on the streets. Citizens and Pokémon alike gathered in droves, expressions ranging from amazement to reverence, even outright fanaticism, all fixed on a single sight. A long procession of round, chubby pink Pokémon waddled down the road, following closely behind their king. Lucien. "Everyone, please don't mind me, go about your business," Lucien said helplessly. This was exactly why he usually stayed in the castle and avoided public appearances. Fortunately, the guards arrived in time, barely managing to keep order. Even so, as the crowd reluctantly dispersed, both humans and Pokémon couldn't help but steal glances at Lucien, and at the unfamiliar Chansey walking behind him. Chansey. The Chansey shrank closer together, clearly nervous. Yet strangely, they didn't sense danger. What they felt instead was warmth. Enthusiasm. Excitement. "Don't worry," Lucien said gently. "These are my people." He pointed to the surroundings. "Look carefully." The Chansey followed his gaze. They saw a flower shop where a young girl in an apron held a Psyduck-shaped watering can, absent-mindedly watering blossoms. Beside her, several Oddish sat neatly on stools, soaking up the sunlight like content little elders. They saw a Pokémon grooming shop. Through the glass, staff gently brushed the fur of several Eevee, whose eyes were half-closed in bliss. They saw a bakery where a panseer carefully used flamethrower to light the oven. The chubby baker laughed and gave it a big thumbs-up in praise. Chansey. The Chansey stood frozen. These humans were nothing like the ones from their memories. Lucien smiled and continued leading them onward. They left the city streets and arrived at the outskirts. Fields stretched endlessly before them. Humans and Pokémon worked side by side, plowing, harvesting, and transporting goods. No chains. No whips. No commands barked in cruelty. The Chansey stared blankly. "Chansey. Do you see it?" Lucien asked quietly. "Chansey?" They looked up at him. "This is a new world," Lucien said. "For humans, and for Pokémon. I've established laws here. No Pokémon will be harmed. No Pokémon will be enslaved." He stopped and turned to face them fully. "This is Lucien City." His voice softened. "Chansey, are you willing to leave the past behind and live here with us? I promise you, no one will ever hurt you again." The Chansey fell silent. Scenes replayed in their minds: iron cages, stolen eggs, screams, fear. Then, sunlight, smiles, and gentle hands. Their kind, simple hearts, long buried beneath terror, slowly resurfaced. "Chansey." One voice. Then another. "Chansey." They nodded, one after another. Lucien exhaled softly and smiled. "Good. Then your first step is learning about this city." The next day, in the backyard of the Lucien City Pokémon Center, Lena Joy and Selena Joy stared at the crowd of Chansey before them, utterly stunned. "Eh?" Lena blinked and turned to Lucien in disbelief. "Your Majesty, are you saying you want these Pokémon, Chansey, to work with us?" "Yes." Lucien nodded. "Is there a problem?" "No. Of course not." Lena waved her hands frantically. Lucian smiled. Chansey are gentle by nature. More importantly, they possess natural healing abilities that far exceed ordinary medicine. He continued calmly, life do, sing, heal pulse, some can even use healing wish. They are perfectly suited to assist at Pokémon centers. The Joy sisters exchanged shocked looks. They can heal Pokémon without potions? Completely? Lucian nodded. With proper guidance. As if on cue, hurried footsteps echoed from the entrance. Nurse Joy. Please help my Pokémon.
A young trainer rushed in, panic written all over his face, clutching an unconscious Pidove riddled with wounds.
Lena immediately stepped forward, taking the Pokémon gently. So badly injured, what happened?
We were training in the wild, the boy said shakily.
We wandered into a territory by mistake. Pidove protected me. Lena reached for an emergency potion. Let me try, Lucian said calmly. Lena was momentarily taken aback. Your Majesty, Lucian? The young trainer also noticed Lucian at that moment.
His eyes widened in shock.
Why, Your Majesty, Lucian?
Lucian gave the boy a brief nod, then turned his gaze to one of the Chansey beside him and gestured lightly.
Chansey, I'll leave this Pidove to you. Chansey. Chansey were naturally gentle Pokémon, instinctively drawn to those who were injured.
Hearing that a Pokémon was hurt, it immediately hurried forward, carefully inspecting the wounds covering the unconscious Pidove. Then, it slowly extended its hands.
In the next instant, faint pink ripples shimmered through the air.
Soft, pale pink energy flowed from Chansey's palms in gentle waves, enveloping Pidove completely.
And then, a miracle unfolded.
Beneath the soothing glow of the pink waves, the deep, ragged wounds on Pidove's body visibly healed at an astonishing speed. The Joy sisters' eyes widened in unison. Your Majesty, Lucian, could this be? Selena gasped.
That's right. Lucian smiled faintly.
Now you understand why I said they're perfectly suited for work at the Pokémon Center. Sister, this is incredible, Lena whispered. Hearing the praise, Chansey shyly lowered its head, its round face flushing slightly.
Chansey. No one had ever praised them before. This unfamiliar warmth swelled quietly in Chansey's chest. It liked this place. The other Chansey watched with clear envy. They wanted to help too. They wanted to be praised too. With Chansey's heal pulse, the severely injured Pidove soon stirred, slowly opening its eyes. Selena carefully examined it, checking its breathing and wings before finally nodding in relief. It's all right now.
Your Pokémon has fully recovered.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nurse Joy, and you too.
The boy bowed deeply. There's no need to thank me, Selena said with a smile.
You should thank Chansey.
The boy turned toward Chansey.
Thank you, Chansey. Chansey.
Chansey replied bashfully. With his Pokémon safe, the trainer left the Pokémon Center, gratitude written across his face.
Lucian turned back to the Joy sisters. So, what do you think?
The Joy sisters looked at the Chansey surrounding them, their eyes filled with awe and excitement. Chansey, our amazing Pokémon, Selena said sincerely. In that case, Lucian said, I'll leave them in your care. Teach them how the Pokémon Center operates during your breaks. Once they're accustomed to the work, I plan to assign them to centers in other cities as well. The Joys who had arrived earlier had already begun traveling to staff Pokémon centers across Lucian City. With Chansey's help, treatment efficiency would increase dramatically, and casualties would be reduced. This was no small responsibility. Lena straightened her posture and nodded firmly.
Yes, Your Majesty, Lucian.
The Chansey, sensing no hostility, only kindness from the Joy sisters, quickly relaxed around them.
Watching the gentle Joy surrounded by equally gentle Chansey, Lucian couldn't help but smile.
Perhaps, their compatibility was even greater than he had expected.
After settling the Chansey, Lucian returned to the castle. Elif immediately stepped forward to report. Your Majesty, the Miltank have been settled according to your instructions. I've also hired 2 experienced ranchers to care for them. Lucian nodded. Miltank were already accustomed to living alongside humans, so their adjustment would be smooth. Still, egg production remained a concern.
The current numbers of Miltank, Chansey, and Growlithe were far too small. At this rate, relying solely on breeding would take decades to reach the scale seen in later eras. It seems that once trade routes with Kanto are firmly established, I'll need to continue importing Chansey, Miltank, and Growlithe, Lucian thought. The Miltank had been placed in a large, unoccupied ranch. The previous owner was a refugee displaced by the war, Elif explained. Now that Unova is at peace, they returned home using a flying taxi. We purchased the land and hired ranchers to manage it. Lucian nodded, then lifted his gaze toward the sprawling farm. The farm's land area was not large. At its center stood a small wooden cabin for the ranchers to live in, along with several barns used to store hay and house livestock Pokémon. The perimeter of the farm was enclosed by wooden fences. Within them stretched an open pasture where a dense carpet of fertile grass grew freely. The group of Miltank imported from the Kanto region were currently scattered across that pasture, leisurely basking in the sunlight while chewing on fresh grass, their expressions calm and satisfied. Nearby, the few toros were charging back and forth without pause. This was simply the natural behavior of toros. Violent by nature, hot-tempered, and brimming with energy, they needed constant movement to vent their excess strength. Your Majesty, Elif reported, we have already prepared milking machines and storage buckets. The workers have completed the first round of milking. Under his guidance, Lucian soon saw long rows of buckets filled with fresh mumu milk. According to their calculations, this batch totals approximately 4,000 liters, Elif added. 4,000 liters in a single day. 8,000 liters in 2 days. With these Miltank alone, they could easily supply the entire city's milk consumption. And unlike ordinary dairy cows, Miltank had no production cooldown. Milk harvested today would be fully replenished by tomorrow. So this is the power of Pokémon. Even Lucian could not help but feel a twinge of amazement. Your Majesty, how should we handle the milk? Elif asked. Strictly speaking, every one of these Miltank had been personally brought back from the Kanto continent by Lucian. Both the Pokémon and the milk they produced technically belonged to him. After a brief moment of thought, Lucian spoke. Have the glass factory begin producing bottles immediately. Also, start construction on a milk factory. The milk would be bottled and distributed to shops throughout Lucian City and surrounding areas. Alternatively, it could be processed into cheese, yogurt, milk bars, and other products. Relying solely on individual workers would not be efficient enough. Assembly line production was clearly the superior approach. Yes, Your Majesty, Elif replied, committing the instructions to memory. After a pause, he added, Your Majesty, this farm does not yet have a name. Would you like to give it one? A name? Lucian was briefly taken aback. Then, 3 familiar characters surfaced in his mind. In that case. Lucian smiled faintly and said, let's call it Mumu Ranch. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated to a Medieval Pokémon World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.